The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and regret. A sterile cage where my life unraveled in beeps and whispers. I woke to a world that didn't make sense. My body a patchwork of bruises and a mind fogged by a coma that stole 5 years of my life. The last thing I remembered was the screech of tires, a blinding light, and the sickening crunch of metal, then nothing. My name is Kai Nakamura, 28, and I'm told I'm lucky to be alive. The doctors said it was a miracle, but miracles don't come with a manual for a life you no longer recognize. My parents sat by my bedside, their faces etched with relief and something else. Secrets. They handed me a phone, its screen cracked but functional, and told me to check my messages. That's when I saw it. A text from a contact labeled, "Husband." My heart stopped. I wasn't married. I'd never even come out to anyone but my best friend, Lena, back in high school. The name attached to the contact was Jalen Carter, the same Jalen Carter who made my teenage years hell. Jalen, the star quarterback, the golden boy of Lincoln High in Portland, Oregon, who'd mocked me relentlessly for my quiet demeanor, my sketchbooks, my everything. His taunts still echoed in my head. Freak. Loser. Now, he was calling me husband? I laughed. A brittle sound that hurt my ribs, and my mom flinched. "It's not a joke, Kai," she said softly. "You and Jalen, you've been married for 2 years. The room spun. I demanded answers, but they came in fragments. Car accident. Coma. A life I'd built and lost to the haze of unconsciousness. Jalen, now a tech CEO in Seattle, had been by my side every day, they said. I couldn't reconcile the bully I knew with the man they described. I demanded to see him, my voice sharp with disbelief. My dad hesitated, then nodded. He's on his way. Seattle was a blur of rain and glass towers when I was discharged a week later, still weak but stubborn enough to refuse a wheelchair. My parents drove me to a sleek apartment in Belltown, one I supposedly shared with Jalen. The place was all modern edges, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and a view of Puget Sound that screamed money. My sketches, though, were everywhere. Framed on walls, tucked into bookshelves. Felt like mine, but not. I was a stranger in my own life. The door opened, and there he was. Jalen Carter, 29, taller than I remembered. His broad shoulders filling out a tailored blazer. His dark eyes, once cruel, now softened with something I couldn't name. "Kai!" he said, his voice low, like he was afraid I'd break. He stepped closer, and I tensed, memories of high school flooding back. Shoves in the hallway, laughter that cut deeper than any bruise. But he didn't touch me. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking like he was carrying the weight of the world. "You don't remember me," he said, not a question. I shook my head, my throat tight. "Not like this." He nodded like he'd expected it and gestured to the couch. "We need to talk." Over coffee that tasted like ash, Jalen told me a story I couldn't believe. After high school, we'd crossed paths at a college art gallery in Seattle. I was studying graphic design. He was clawing his way through a business degree. He'd apologized for everything, every slur, every shove, and I'd been too stunned to do anything but listen. Somehow, that apology turned into coffee, then friendship, then love. We'd moved in together 3 years ago, married 2 years later. He showed me photos. Us laughing at a pride parade, kissing under Christmas lights, signing papers at City Hall. I stared at the images, my own face smiling back, unrecognizable. "Why should I believe you?" I asked, my voice cold. His eyes flickered with pain, but he didn't look away. "Because I've spent every day since the crash praying you'd wake up," he said. "And I'll spend every day from now on helping you remember." That night, I lay in our shared bed, Jalen on the couch in the living room. I couldn't sleep, my mind a war zone of doubt and fractured memories. The man I hated was now my husband, and I didn't know if I could trust him or myself. But there was something in his voice, a rawness that gnawed at me. I needed answers, not just about him, but about the person I'd become. The next morning, I found a journal in my nightstand, my handwriting filling the pages. The first entry read, "Jalen apologized today. I don't know why, but I want to believe him." I spent days poring over that journal, each entry a breadcrumb leading me through a life I didn't remember. Jalen gave me space, cooking meals I didn't eat, leaving notes I didn't answer. He was patient, but I saw the cracks. His late-night pacing, the way his hands shook when he thought I wasn't looking. He was a man haunted, and I was the ghost. One evening, I found a photo album tucked under the coffee table. It was us, year by year, building a life. One picture stopped me cold. Jalen and me at a hospital, my arm in a sling, his face bruised. The caption read, "The night we promised forever." I didn't know what it meant, but it felt like a key to something locked inside me. I confronted Jalen that night, holding the album like evidence. "What happened here?" I demanded. He hesitated, then sat me down. "That was the first accident," he said. "Not the one that put you in a coma. 3 years ago, we were hit by a drunk driver. You were hurt, but I was worse. You stayed with me, Kai. You didn't leave my side." His voice broke. "You said you'd never let me go." I didn't know what to say. The Jalen I remembered was a monster, but this man was breaking in front of me. I wanted to hate him, but the journal, the photos, the life around me, they all told a different story. I was drowning in questions, and the only way out was through him. The next week was a tightrope walk. Jalen tried to rebuild our life, but every gesture, every cup of coffee he left on the counter, every quiet good morning, felt like an intrusion. I wasn't ready to be his husband, not when I still saw the high school bully in his shadow. Yet, I couldn't ignore the evidence piling up. My own handwriting in the journal, detailing dates and fights and moments of love I couldn't access. I needed to know more, so I asked Lena, my old friend, to meet me. Lena, now 28 and a social worker in Tacoma, met me at a cramped diner off I-5. Her curly hair was shorter, her smile still sharp. "You look like hell, Kai," she said, sliding into the booth. I laughed, the first real laugh since I'd woken up. I told her everything, the coma, the marriage, Jalen. Her eyes widened, but she didn't look surprised. "You always had a thing for complicated guys," she said, sipping her coffee. "But Jalen? He changed, Kai. I saw it." She told me how Jalen had tracked her down after college, asking how to make things right with me. "He was a mess," she said. "Guilty. Broken. He knew he'd screwed up in high school." Lena had been skeptical, but she'd watched us rebuild something real. "You loved him," she said, her voice soft. "You still might if you let yourself." Her words stuck with me as I drove back to Seattle, the rain smearing the windshield like my thoughts. Jalen was waiting at the apartment, his tie loosened, a takeout bag from my favorite ramen place on the counter. "You used to love their spicy miso," he said, almost shy. I ate in silence, watching him. He didn't push, didn't ask questions. It was infuriating, how careful he was, like he was handling glass. I started digging deeper, piecing together the man I'd become. My old laptop held emails, designs, and a portfolio that showed I'd been freelancing as a graphic designer. There were messages from clients, friends, and Jalen, hundreds of them, filled with pet names and inside jokes. One email, dated a year ago, was from Jalen. "Kai, you're my anchor. Don't ever forget that. I slammed the laptop shut, my chest tight. I didn't want to feel this, not yet. The next day, I found a box in the closet labeled Memories. Inside were trinkets, a concert wristband, a pressed flower, a Polaroid of us at a lake, Jalen's arm around me. I didn't remember the lake, but my smile in the photo was real. I was starting to hate how much of myself I'd lost. That night, I asked Jalen about the lake. His face lit up, a rare crack in his guarded demeanor. Lake Crescent, he said. We went there for our first anniversary. You sketched the mountains all weekend. He pulled up a video on his phone. Shaky footage of me laughing by the water, charcoal smudged on my fingers. Jalen's voice in the background teased, "You're gonna draw the whole damn lake, aren't you?" I watched myself turn, grinning, and throw a pebble at him. The video ended, and I realized I was crying. Jalen reached for me, then stopped, his hand hovering. "I'm here, Kai," he said. "Whenever you're ready." I wasn't ready, but I let him sit closer. We started small, watching movies I used to love, cooking together. He burned the chicken, and I laughed, the sound startling us both. For a moment it felt normal, but normal was dangerous. Every step toward him felt like betraying the kid I'd been, the one who'd hated Jalen with every fiber of his being. Then came the fundraiser. Jalen's company, a tech startup focused on green energy, was hosting a gala in downtown Seattle. He asked me to come, not as his husband, but as his guest. "No pressure," he said, but his eyes begged. I agreed, mostly to see him in his element, to understand who he'd become. The gala was all glitz. Chandeliers, suits, and champagne flutes. Jalen moved through the crowd like he owned it, but he kept glancing at me, checking if I was okay. I wasn't. The noise, the people, the weight of eyes on me, it was too much. I slipped outside to the rooftop, the city sprawling below. Jalen found me, his tie undone, worry etched into his face. "You didn't have to come," he said. I snapped, the tension spilling over. "Then why am I here, Jalen? Why are you trying so hard?" He stepped closer, his voice raw. "Because I love you. Because I almost lost you twice, and I can't do it again." His words hit like a punch. I wanted to scream, to run, but I stayed, my hands shaking. He didn't touch me, just stood there, the wind tugging at his jacket. "I was a monster to you," he said. "I know that, but I'm not that kid anymore. I'm asking you to see me, Kai, the real me." I didn't answer, but I didn't leave either. We stood there, the city humming below, and for the first time I felt something shift, a crack in the wall I'd built. The crack widened, but it didn't mean trust. Jalen's confession on the rooftop lingered, a weight I couldn't shake. I started noticing things. How he left my favorite tea on the counter without a word. How he'd pause at my sketches, his fingers tracing the lines like they were sacred. It was disarming, and I hated how it softened me. I wasn't ready to forgive, not when the past still burned. I threw myself into reclaiming my life. I contacted old clients, took on small design projects to ground myself. My hands remembered the work, even if my mind didn't. Jalen encouraged it, setting up a corner of the apartment with a new drawing tablet. "You always worked best at night," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. I wanted to snap at him, to keep the distance, but I just nodded. He was trying, and I was tired of fighting. One night, I found a letter in the journal, tucked between pages. It was from me to Jalen, dated a month before the crash. "You're my home," I'd written. "No matter what, I'm yours." The words felt like a stranger's, but they were mine, inked in my careful script. I shoved the journal away, my heart racing. How could I have loved him so completely? What had changed him? What had changed me? I needed context, so I tracked down Marcus, a mutual friend from college who'd been at our wedding. Marcus, 30, a lanky Latino with a quick laugh, met me at a bar in Capitol Hill. Over beers, he painted a picture of us, Jalen and me, the couple who'd fought for each other. "He was a wreck when you were in the coma," Marcus said. "Wouldn't leave the hospital. Kept saying he didn't deserve you." I asked about high school, about the Jalen I knew. Marcus winced. "He was a kid, Kai. Angry, scared. He came out after college, you know. Took him years to face himself." Jalen, gay? The revelation hit hard. The bully who'd tormented me had been hiding his own truth. It didn't excuse him, but it explained the rage, the cruelty. I went home that night and watched Jalen sleep on the couch, his face unguarded. For the first time, I saw the man, not the monster. We started talking more, awkward, stilted conversations that grew easier with time. He told me about his company, how he'd built it from nothing, driven by a need to prove himself. I told him about my sketches, the ones I'd done since waking up. He listened like every word mattered. One night he cooked dinner, burnt chicken again, and we laughed until I couldn't breathe. It was the first time I felt like I belonged in this life. But the past wasn't done with us. At a coffee shop, I ran into Ethan, a former classmate who'd been Jalen's best friend in high school. Ethan, 29, all smug charm and gelled hair, smirked when he saw me. "Heard you forgot your boy toy," he said, leaning too close. "Jalen's playing house, huh? Bet he hasn't told you everything." His words were venom, and they stuck. I pressed Jalen that night, demanding to know what Ethan meant. His face closed off, a wall slamming down. "Nothing," he said, too quick. "He's just stirring trouble." I didn't believe him. I started digging, combing through old emails, social media, anything. I found a photo from college, Jalen and Ethan at a party, too close, too familiar. My stomach twisted. Had Jalen cheated? Lied? I confronted him, the photo on my phone like a weapon. He didn't deny it. "It was before you," he said, his voice low. "A mistake. I was figuring myself out." He reached for me, but I pulled away. "I've never lied to you, Kai. Not since we started." I wanted to believe him, but doubt was a poison. I moved to the guest room, needing space. Jalen didn't fight it, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. The apartment felt colder, the silence heavier. I kept working, sketching, trying to anchor myself, but Ethan's words echoed. What else didn't I know? Then came the call. My mom, her voice shaky, told me about a box of my things in their attic, stuff from college, from before the marriage. I drove to Portland the next day, desperate for answers. The box was a time capsule. Sketchbooks, letters, a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop, and there it was, a video diary I'd kept in college. In it, I talked about Jalen, about his apology, about the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. "He's trying," I said in the video, my 22-year-old face earnest. "I think I could love him." I sat in my childhood bedroom, the USB drive hot in my hand, and cried. The man I'd been had seen something in Jalen, something worth fighting for. I wasn't sure I could be that man again, but I wanted to try. Back in Seattle, I didn't tell Jalen about the video. I wasn't ready to bridge that gap, not when doubt still lingered. Instead, I watched him. He was different now, quieter, more careful, but still the man who'd built a life with me. I started joining him on morning runs, our breaths puffing in the cold air along the waterfront. We didn't talk much, but the rhythm of our steps felt like a conversation. One morning, he stopped by the pier, the water glinting under the dawn. "I know you're still figuring this out," he said, not looking at me. "But I'm not going anywhere." I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't trust him fully, but I was starting to want to. Work became my anchor. I landed a big contract designing a logo for a local nonprofit, and Jalen celebrated with me, ordering takeout and opening a bottle of wine. We sat on the balcony, the city lights below, and he told me stories. Our first date, our fights, the time I dragged him to an art exhibit and he'd pretended to hate it. His laughter was warm, and for a moment, I forgot the gap between us. But Ethan wasn't done. He texted me, a single line, "Ask Jalen about the lawsuit." My blood ran cold. I confronted Jalen that night, my voice sharp. He sighed, rubbing his face. "It's old news," he said. "Ethan sued me 2 years ago, claimed I stole his idea for the company. He lost. He's bitter." I pressed for details, but Jalen shut down. "It's in the past, Kai. Let it stay there." Couldn't. I dug online, finding articles about the lawsuit. Ethan had been Jalen's business partner early on, but their falling out was messy. Accusations of betrayal, stolen code. The court ruled in Jalen's favor, but the comments online painted him as ruthless, a man who'd do anything to win. I didn't know what to believe. Was Jalen the man I'd married, or the one Ethan described? I needed space, so I took a freelance job in San Francisco, a week-long project. Jalen didn't argue, but he drove me to the airport, his hands tight on the wheel. "Call me if you need me," he said. I nodded, but I didn't call. San Francisco was a blur of work and late-night walks, my mind wrestling with Jalen, with us. I sketched him one night, his face half in shadow, and realized I was drawing the man I loved, not the boy I hated. When I got back, Jalen was waiting at the airport, holding a sign with my name like a cheesy rom-com. I laughed despite myself, and he grinned, tentative. "Missed you," he said. I didn't say it back, but I let him take my bag, our fingers brushing. It was the first time I didn't pull away. We fell into a rhythm, cautious but real. I started sleeping in our bed again, Jalen's warmth a quiet comfort. One night he kissed my forehead, and I didn't flinch. But the past wasn't done with us. Ethan showed up at the apartment, drunk and angry, banging on the door. Jalen tried to calm him, but Ethan's words were a knife. "You think you're redeemed, Carter? You'll always be the guy who ruined me." I stepped between them, my voice steady. "Get out, Ethan." He laughed, bitter, but left. Jalen looked at me, his eyes raw. "I didn't ruin him," he said. "He made his choices." I believed him, not because of the words, but because of the man standing in front of me, the one who'd fought for me every day. That night we talked, really talked, about high school, his fear, his shame, about college, his coming out, his fight to be better, about us, the life we'd built. I told him about the video diary, about the man I'd been. He cried, and I held him, my hands steady. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The months that followed were a slow rebuild. Jalen and I weren't the couple in the photos, not yet, but we were something new, fragile but growing. I kept designing, my work grounding me, while Jalen poured himself into his company, balancing his ambition with the quiet moments we carved out together. We went back to Lake Crescent, and I sketched the mountains again, Jalen watching with a smile that felt like home. But life doesn't let you forget. A year after I woke up, Ethan resurfaced, posting online about Jalen, calling him a fraud, a liar. The accusations spread, threatening Jalen's company. I watched him fight, not with the ruthlessness Ethan described, but with quiet determination. He didn't hide from me, sharing every email, every call. "I want you to know me," he said. "All of me." I did. I saw the man who'd grown from his mistakes, who'd loved me through my own darkness. I saw the boy he'd been, scared and lashing out, and the man he'd become, steady and kind. One night, as we sat on the rooftop where he'd bared his soul, I took his hand. "I'm starting to remember," I said. It wasn't the memories of our life together, not fully, but the feeling, the love I'd written about, the trust I'd built. The lawsuit drama faded, Ethan's claims debunked, but it left scars. Jalen stepped back from the spotlight, focusing on us. We renewed our vows in a quiet ceremony, just us, Lena, and Marcus, on a cliff overlooking the Sound. I didn't remember our first wedding, but this one was mine, ours. I spoke my vows, my voice steady. "I choose you, Jalen," again and again. He kissed me and the world felt right. Not perfect, not whole, but right. The coma had taken years, but it hadn't taken us. We were proof that love could survive the worst. Bullies, crashes, lost memories. We weren't the same men we'd been, but we were better, stronger. As we stood there, the wind carrying our laughter, I realized something. I didn't need to remember every moment to know I was home. Jalen was my anchor just as I'd written, and I was his. We'd woken up after the crash, not just me, but us, together.